It's 2 a.m. and your body is exhausted, but your brain? Your brain is hosting a full conference, replaying that conversation from 3 days ago, planning tomorrow's email, wondering if you locked the door, solving problems that don't even exist yet. And the harder you try to sleep, the louder it gets. If this is you, you're not broken. You're just wired differently. And tonight, we're going inside the psychology of people who can't stop thinking at night. Because what's happening in your head isn't random. It's a pattern. And once you understand it, everything changes. Most people assume nighttime overthinking is just stress or anxiety. And sure, sometimes it is. But for some people, it's deeper than that. It's the way their brain processes the world. Because here's what most don't realize. Your mind doesn't actually turn off when you lie down. It shifts modes. During the day, you're in active problem-solving mode, reacting, responding, surviving. But at night, when the noise fades and the distractions disappear, your brain finally gets space to do what it's been waiting to do all day. Process everything you didn't have time to feel. That's why the thoughts come flooding in the second your head hits the pillow. It's not that you suddenly have more problems, it's that you finally have silence. And for a mind that's been running on autopilot, silence is terrifying. Because silence means you have to face what you've been avoiding. The worry you pushed down during your morning meeting, the conversation you didn't finish, the fear you didn't acknowledge. Your brain isn't torturing you. It's trying to help you survive by making sense of everything before tomorrow starts again. Psychologically, this is linked to something called cognitive hyperarousal. When your mind is in this state, the part of your brain responsible for worry, the prefrontal cortex, stays active, even when it should be winding down. It's like a computer that won't shut off because too many programs are still running in the background. And the more you think, the more awake you become. Because thinking triggers alertness. It releases cortisol, the stress hormone, which tells your body, hey, something's wrong, stay alert. So now you're stuck in a loop. You think because you can't sleep, and you can't sleep because you think. But here's where it gets interesting. Not everyone who overthinks at night is anxious. Some people are just deep processors. Their brains need more time to organize information. They're the ones who don't just experience life, they analyze it. They replay conversations not because they regret them, but because they're searching for meaning. They plan tomorrow not because they're worried, but because their mind craves structure. For them, nighttime thinking isn't a problem, it's a ritual. It's the only time their brain feels free to wander without interruption. And if you're one of these people, you've probably noticed something strange. Your best ideas come at night. When everyone else is asleep and your mind is finally alone, that's when clarity hits. That's when you solve the thing you've been stuck on for weeks. That's when you see the answer you couldn't find during the day. There's actually a reason for this. At night, your brain enters what's called the default mode network. This is the state where your mind makes connections between seemingly unrelated thoughts. It's the same state that activates during daydreaming or meditation. So when you're lying there thinking about everything and nothing at the same time, your brain isn't malfunctioning, it's creating. It's connecting dots. It's doing the behind-the-scenes work that logic alone can't do. That's why artists, writers, and deep thinkers often say their best work happens late at night. Because the world is quiet, and in that quiet, the mind can finally hear itself. But let's be honest, it's not always beautiful. Sometimes it's just exhausting. Because when your thoughts won't stop, it doesn't feel like creativity, it feels like punishment. You lie there replaying mistakes, imagining worst-case scenarios, worrying about things you can't control. And the frustrating part? You know it's irrational. You know tomorrow will be fine. You know you're overthinking. But knowing doesn't stop it. Because nighttime thoughts aren't about logic, they're about emotion. And emotion doesn't care what you know. It cares what you feel. And what you feel late at night, when your defenses are down, is everything you've been too busy to feel all day. That's why sadness hits harder at 3 a.m. That's why regret feels unbearable in the dark. Because nighttime strips away the distractions. It removes the masks. And suddenly you're alone with the rawest version of yourself. Psychologists call this emotional amplification. At night, your emotional regulation weakens. The part of your brain that keeps feelings in check during the day, the one that says, "Not now, deal with it later," finally runs out of energy. So everything you suppressed comes rushing back, and it feels bigger, heavier, more urgent than it actually is. But here's the thing, that version of you, the one that spirals at night, isn't telling the truth. It's telling a story shaped by exhaustion and darkness. Because when you're tired, your brain defaults to negativity. It's a survival mechanism. Your ancestors needed to stay alert to danger at night, so your brain is biologically wired to scan for threats when it's dark out. That's why your thoughts skew negative after midnight. It's not reality, it's biology. So what do you do when your mind won't stop? Most people try to force it. They tell themselves to stop thinking, to just relax, to clear their mind. But that's like telling someone not to think about a white bear. The second you try to suppress a thought, it gets louder. Because your brain hears "don't think about it" as "think about it more." This is called thought suppression paradox. The harder you fight your thoughts, the stronger they become. So instead of fighting, you have to redirect. Give your mind something to do, not something stimulating, but something rhythmic, something that occupies just enough mental space to quiet the chaos without waking you up more. Some people count breaths. Some people visualize a simple scene, like rain falling or waves rolling. Some people repeat a meaningless word over and over until the meaning dissolves and only the sound remains. It's not about emptying your mind. It's about filling it with something neutral, so the spiraling thoughts have no room to grow. And here's something most people don't know. Your nighttime thoughts aren't even about what you think they're about. You think you're worried about tomorrow's meeting, but really you're worried about being judged. You think you're replaying that awkward moment, but really you're questioning if you're likable. Your brain uses surface-level thoughts as placeholders for deeper fears. And until you acknowledge the deeper fear, the surface thoughts will keep looping. So sometimes the kindest thing you can do is ask yourself, what am I actually afraid of right now? Not what happened today, but what feeling is underneath it all? Fear of failure? Fear of rejection? Fear of not being enough? When you name it, it loses some of its power because unnamed fear is infinite, but named fear is just a feeling, and feelings, no matter how intense, eventually pass. If you're someone who can't stop thinking at night, you're not alone. You're part of a quiet group of people whose minds refuse to rest until they've made sense of the day. You're the ones who feel everything twice, once in the moment and once in the reflection. And while that might make sleep harder, it also makes you more aware, more thoughtful, more connected to the invisible threads that hold life together. Your nighttime mind isn't your enemy, it's just trying to protect you in the only way it knows, by preparing, by processing, by making sure nothing slips through the cracks. But you don't have to let it run the show. You can listen without obeying. You can acknowledge the thoughts without believing them. You can let them pass like clouds across a night sky, present but not permanent. Because here's the truth most people miss. Those racing thoughts, they're not a sign that something's wrong with you. They're a sign that your mind is working exactly as it was designed to. Maybe a little too well, maybe a little too much, but not broken, just human. And maybe, just maybe, learning to be gentle with that restless mind of yours is the first step to finally finding peace. Not by silencing it, but by understanding it, by letting it speak, and then, quietly, teaching it that it's safe to rest.